Well,
please?
this is our material to keep.
Yes?
Okay. I think what we'll have to do is make sure everybody gets copies of everything that's included there so that we can consider it.
You know, like,
Draft it again.
just like I said, this is a very inexpensive sport. These are $10 to buy it. She bought this set for like $50. And it's got 2 paddles, 2 balls.
You must know Dave. I know he's in pickleball. Dave, you know.
No, we play down in Florida. We don't play up here. We don't go to California.
No, we don't care to go all the way over to Essexville to play.
Yeah.
But even then, whatever you do,
Well, even the Y, you have to be
you
a
make
member.
long-lasting friends.
And it's like going over the bridge. No, I worked over there for 23 years. I get towards those bridges, and I'm like, nah.
Okay, I think we'll need to make
Well, it's
copies.
big over at the Y.
Yeah.
And they're getting out there gonna do like time courts too.
I believe it's
Right there
I
on
guess
Saginaw
you should-
Street,
right,
just to
right
the
now,
east of the
right now you're
Y.
still in the 3.
They got them
Which
all.
is
Two
now
courts, they
11.
got them painted already.
Public health.
They have, I don't think they have the nets and stuff up for them. No,
No,
Y,
we're Y
Saginaw
members.
Street.
Moving on, thanks
All
Scott.
right, thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, you guys.
Yep.
Have a good night.
Anybody else have anything to say?
I do. Justin Ebel, 1890 River Road. Although Scott and Kelly have not, admittedly so, have not done this before, I've seen the caliber and quality of the work they've done on home projects and things that they've done, and they're exceptional as far as their detail. And that's it.
Appreciate that. And understand, I would have to ask that question, you know.
Any other comments?
Yeah. Jim Burke, 2426 Beaver. Anyway, in regards to the RDA grant, this board would need to sit down and we need to figure out the basics of what we want to do. There has to be a feasibility study, because no matter what we do, and if we go and get bids, all this stuff, it's not going to matter if we don't have the feasibility study. That has to be done first. So the board would have to authorize that from like Spicer or whoever, so. But that has to be the first step.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Scott Shafransky from Linwood Beach Marina, and I didn't know if it was on the agenda tonight, but, oops, sorry. I'm just here to keep our finger on the pulse of the Linwood Elite Resort Development, because we're getting pretty busy at the marina, and just wanted to make sure that if we were dealing with construction or not, that we're informed. So not quite sure where the decision process is there. And to Scott and Kelly's, how you doing, guys? My mom was considering a pickleball court in Sanford and trying to do something similar. And there's templates available. You can buy them on Amazon. If you're concerned with the lines in there, and just something that they were looking at. They were like a couple $100.
Yeah.
I see them.
Yeah. So that's the reason, like I said, I didn't know for sure whether it was on the agenda. I know there's been a couple of meetings scheduled and canceled, and my head's gonna be in the sand here for the next 3 months, so, just wanted to make sure that, I'm abreast, that's all.
Well, I can say we can keep you informed as to what's on there, being on the planning commission, and we were just discussing it earlier, because there will not be a planning commission meeting this month, because we have the chair out of town, the vice chair out of town, and there's no other items on that. It has to go through the board of review, I think, first. Is that what that was, that we just had that was canceled?
Well, it was gonna go to the board of review, that's what the planning commission suggested, but now I think it's going back to the planning commission, so I don't know. I mean, you're just gonna have to leave everybody, give everybody information.
So we'll just keep you informed, we'll put it on the township's webpage. That way, for sure, it will be there, and you'll know one spot where you can look to find out any information about any kind of special meeting that might or might not be happening.
Yeah, because we had the same concerns about parking
Oh,
and that.
last weekend, you had no spare parking, it was all the way to Linwood Road and 2 tracks. And if one person would have pulled in and parked north and south, you'd have been in a world of hurt.
Yeah, and that's nothing new to us, but, just want to make
That's
sure.
good business, but it,
We're
you
doing
know,
All right, thank you, Scott.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, moving on to new business, we have no unfinished business. New business, the water usage bill for 2757 Huron Road.
if I could talk a little bit about that. The person just purchased that property on August 19th. The water was not put into their name until October 3rd, which I don't quite understand what and why there was such a lapse. But I talked to the water department about it. They said, we do not forgive water because once it's out the pipe, they received the goods, whether they did the purpose or didn't do their purpose. So, I found it interesting in research that I did regarding this situation. We just received another letter in this month's packet in regards to this, but this person owns numerous homes, and I can't believe they would go to Florida and not have somebody checking on this property. So, in my recommendation, I would say to give them 6 months without turning off their water, but needing to pay a monthly payment to the water department. Because the water, I was already told, you don't give credit for water. And they want credit for the sewage piece of the bill, but part of the problem is you don't know any amount that may or may not have, and just because she didn't have somebody checking on her property, I don't believe we should be responsible. We're not. It'd be no different than anybody sitting in this room going to Florida and having the same problem happen, and then come to us and we just can't visit this. In the past, last year, there was an incident where this took place, and upon reviewing this specific case, I believe we should give her 6 months to pay the bill.
I'll follow up with that after reading the letter from the lady. I had heard that this was a rental house. That's not at all what is said in the letter. What is said in the letter is that she owns a house in Bay City, and that she also owns this house, and that she spends time between the two. Now, I mean, we all live in Caucalan, and it's great and everything, but it's not really a vacation home area, especially when it's 10 miles away. That doesn't make any sense to me. I think there's more to that story. In addition to that, this was not a water break, like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that happened. It was frozen pipes. So that goes back to, you know, some type of owner negligence to not have prepared properly to pick up and go to Florida in December in Michigan. We all know how that works. There should have been a little bit more preparation work, in my opinion. I don't think this was an act of God. This was something you could have expected.
Okay, so do we have a motion on what we would like to do with this?
Motion is divide the water bill by 6, and she could pay 6 equal monthly payments. And we would not shut the water off as long as she pays those payments.
You mean the 2141, right? Because that's water and sewer, not the
Correct.
water.
Yeah,
The full amount?
yes. But she may be concerned that her water would be shut off, and we're saying we're not gonna shut it off. Just pay an installment payment to the Department of Water,
On time, every month.
you know, like the first of each month. And I'll tell you how much if you give me just a second.
Okay, but you're saying divide that by 6 and give her extra time to pay it. But I mean, I think that's something we need to work out with the water department. They have to be okay with that. That's not part of this.
Yeah, because they're not paying it to us, they're paying it to the water department, so I guess we almost have to
They
get,
have to be okay with that too.
right.
Well, the motion would be that, and then we'll clarify with the water department what they're gonna do, because I'm not gonna make a motion to forgive any of it. Because the forgiving part's over, Okay, if I go away and my pipes leak water under my house, that's my responsibility. And if it damages my house, that's my insurance company's responsibility. It's not my township or my government entity. But they're saying here that if we want to, because normally they allow payment plans for people that can't pay their water bill, and I'm saying we're gonna tell them that we would permit them to pay this over a period of 6 months without turning off that lady's water, as long as she pays the payment. And I don't see why the water department wouldn't accept it. I'll call the same person I talked to already about this, because I think that's more than fair.
I think, as you said, you know, there's certain responsible parties, and at no point is the responsible party the citizens of the township that had nothing to do with it. So we shouldn't be eating these bills when people have something happen, you know? That's how it goes. That's life. It sucks sometimes, but you gotta take care of it.
$356.83 paid monthly for 6 months, for a grand total of $2,141.61. I said that, so that way you got a recording.
And I would say the courts would agree exactly with what you guys are saying, because the case law on this, what it comes down to is, most people in black robes will say, who is in the best position to safeguard, to prevent this? And the local government doesn't have the right to just go break into everybody's home and say, hey, is this HVAC system warm enough? Is it not warm enough? And the owners of the property are in the best position to determine that. So I would say the courts would agree exactly 100% with what you guys are saying.
And she owns more than one home, and this does not have a homestead exemption on it.
Well, even if you
So,
did,
you
analysis
know,
is the same.
But getting back to what,
Are you?
Can I say,
Yeah.
a motion was made,
okay,
I think, to, how do I wanna say this now? Upon approval of the water department, we suggest, or we make refer that we suggest that they make 6 months, take 6 months to pay the bill in full of $21.41, which would be 6 months at $365.83.
$356.83.
$356. Oh, I'm dyslexic here.
No, that's okay.
I will
But this
make
would
that a lot
be-
nicer when
I would make sure though that it says,
you
the
recommend.
Collin Township Board recommends the repayment of $2,141.61
That's what I wanted
in
to say.
6 equal monthly payments of $356.83.
Yes.
I'm only repeating it because that way it's on the tape.
Well, in this way, yeah, I was stumbling on that
No,
one.
that's
but-
okay, and if you have a problem with it, call me.
No,
And-
Well, it sounds like it's contingent though, just from a legal perspective.
I'll call the Department of Water and Sewer tomorrow.
Well, but I guess let me pose this question to you. Is it that somebody's putting forth a motion to deny the request
Yeah.
first?
Yeah, we can do that.
And then you'll follow up with the water department to give them some flexibility? Because as long as they're paying back 100%, that does require a roll call vote.
It does, correct, or does not?
It does not, because you're not spending money. You're just allowing the water department to collect the same amount of money. But the way you read it the first time, it sounded like it was, one was predicated on the other.
Right.
So if the water department
No,
says no,
so-
then the motion dies.
So what we're saying is the township has denied.
Yes. I will make that motion.
We deny
I will
it.
make that
Keep it
motion to
simple.
deny the request.
Keep it simple.
And then trustee Campbell is willing to contact at the water department.
Yeah, I'll just call her up tomorrow, same person I've been talking to. That way we're all on the same page yet. And say, you know, we want this to happen so that she continuously will have service, but that's contingent on her paying a monthly payment.
We have a second on that, on Lori's
I'll second hers, that we're not forgiving this bill.
denying request for forgiveness. I will say it better than that.
It's late. It's all good.
to go along with that a little bit, I was at a water,
You need to vote on this.
Okay. Petrimo,
yes,
Campbell,
Yes.
DeShano,
Yes.
Class.
Yes.
No, this doesn't really have to be put in there, but to go along with that, I was at a water meeting last week, and they didn't specifically bring this up, but they said, with these new meters that are coming out, stuff like this would not actually happen, because the new meters have all kinds of different alarms on them. And once the alarm goes off at the water department, they would contact the people wherever they are and tell them what's going on. So they can send some, if they're out of town, they can send somebody over to look at it. They just happened to bring that up. They didn't say, they didn't bring this specific case up, but they just said, for people that are traveling, worried about frozen pipes or whatever, these new meters, if and when anybody gets any, they have like 3 or 4 different types of alarms on to let people know what's going on.
Well, you can actually get
Just wanted to let you know that.
a little valve put on your water line so that if it's more than a trickle, it shuts your water off.
Right.
Because I know there was a person down in Bangor Township when I was at Calcallan Church, and they had that exact problem, and they had a terrible flood. So when John Groyes come out to do the work, he said, well, why don't you have this on your water line? It's like, what are you talking about? Well, it would have shut your water off. You would have had 0 damage to your home.
Wow.
It's like, really, and it's like a couple $100. It's a very inexpensive, but very effective, so.
Good. Is that the same smart meters they put in Bay City? Similar to the ones they installed?
That's what's being proposed.
Okay, 20-year master plan. So we received the master plan. Basically, what the township has to do is make a motion to accept the master plan, to state that we received it, and then it goes into this 63-day review period.
Correct.
So what I would like to make, and it seems how I've looked at it, and went over the whole thing, and I've talked to Charlie about it, there are 5 errors in that master plan that need to be redone. So I would like to make a motion to accept the master plan with the revisions, contingent to the revisions going in place. And then the 63-day public review period goes into effect. But there was 5 errors in that master plan that had to be fixed.
Okay, so first off, I'm gonna say, what were the errors? I mean, was it grammatical, was it an omission?
Inverting numbers.
Yeah, there was, some of them, I don't have it with me because I gave it to Charlie, but there was some places where they have one number, like, say, using for reference, they were talking about 1,000 acres. Well, in the next sentence, they were saying 1,200 acres.
Okay.
So it's basically, it was grammatical errors in there that they had to change numbers and that, where they had the wrong numbers in the wrong places or whatever. They were kind of contradicting themselves in a couple places.
So, I'm just gonna go ahead and make this snarky comment, we pay them an awful lot of money for those kind of mistakes to happen. We have had bills for thousands and thousands of dollars come through here, through this process, and what that sounds to me is that they're cutting and pasting, and we really are paying them too much money to cut and paste a document that matters this much. There's my snarky comment. I don't think that's acceptable, and then we have
Well,
a
I
question
don't-
on the bill about, landscape architect, and we're not doing any landscaping, so I'm a little bit curious
Right.
about the work that Spicer's doing for us. Just gonna put that out there.
And I don't think that, when we do tell them to change that, I personally don't think that we should have to pay for revision.
Oh, I absolutely agree with that.
Because it was their mistakes, and I don't think we should have to pay for it.
So, but if we accept the draft and we start the 63-day period, at what point are they gonna get back to us? Because they're not always the most timely in responding to us. When are they gonna get back to us with a completed draft that is updated with those changes so that the public actually has time to review it if we're already starting the clock?
No, the 63 days don't start until they hand us
But we're
the new
accepting it. No.
accepting it contingent
Just wanna
on the
clarify.
revisions. So the revision date that it's delivered back to us is the start of the 63 days.
Okay.
So if that's the case, then we're just saying we want another draft. Do we even have to accept this draft?
Yeah, because otherwise we can't get the dang wheels even rolling. We got a dead horse in the middle of the railroad track.
Yeah, we have to accept this draft with the revisions. That's the way I was told.
Did Sam find a resolution saying that the board reserves the right to be the final approver? Because I'm not sure if you guys recall, when I quoted the Planning Enabling Act where it talked about the master plan, it said that the planning commission is the final say. So the 63 days starts when the planning commission says yes, unless there's a resolution that superseded that.
First time.
Well, at the planning commission, we actually approved it to be sent to the township board. We did not approve the document in its entirety. We approved it to go from us to the township board.
As a courtesy then?
No, the start of the 63, just like this set out documentation here.
I understand it says that on Spicer letterhead, but the statute that I quoted.
Says we don't have 63 days, it happens and it's done, is what you're saying?
Well, the final approver would have been the planning commission the date it was done. Now, if there's a 63-day review period at the county level, then the 63 days would start then. So if you guys are saying there's mistakes in there, the law's extremely clear that the planning commission gets the first bite at the apple, so that's gonna have to go back to the planning commission.
That can happen.
Okay, so basically this is a non-issue for us. We send it back to
So
planning.
63 days when you started February 9th, and you guys approved it.
We approved.
It says here, it says the planning commission review draft master plan. Planning commission makes a motion to send the draft to the township, and it says on February 9th, which can be edited. We will make those before the packets go out, well. January 30th, the planning commission to provide comments to Spicer Group on the draft plan. February 6th, send an updated copy of the master plan to the township board. February 13th, the board meets to approve and draft the master plan for the 63-day public review period. And it's after the board's approval of draft. And then it goes back to the planning commission to begin the 63-day review period. So it's, here it says April 18th is supposed to be the last of the 63 days, but it won't be because it's just starting now,
Correct.
so,
Because it was
right,
never accepted the first month nor the second month.
right. So that's what I have here, so,
I can resend the citation to you guys.
If you'd send that to me.
Yeah, that's the first
I
we've
have
heard
no
of it.
problem.
So,
All I know is once it was put together, that it was to go to the township, and it wasn't accepted, and it wasn't accepted. So, with that in mind,
And I do know there's been times where the planning commission has, just like the board, as a courtesy, went to the planning commission saying, do you guys want to have a vote on this? Before we have the final vote, you as the final vote. But I don't remember there being
So you're
that in that in the planning enabling act.
okay.
so,
But even if Spicer's right, you can't really, trustee Shano's right as well. You can't take an action because you can't,
It's
since it has to go to
it's
them
not
first.
complete. It has to
Yeah.
be problem.
so I don't know if the motion that I made to
tabled.
accept it with the changes, is
Actually,
we have to
I
withdraw
would-
that?
Just withdraw it.
I'll withdraw that.
Okay.
So this has gotta go back, basically gotta go back to the,
At a minimum, the planning commission is
Right.
always the first step. I believe it's the first and the last step.
Okay.
Because unless there's a resolution that says the township board reserves the right to make the final say on it.
Well, we'll let Spicer know what the modifications are,
alright,
so then that way, next month, it can be addressed at the planning commission.
And I can send it to you right away, so when you let them know the modifications, you can
This
send
is
them that
why-
citation as well.
Absolutely, appreciate it.
okay, moving on, next one, Bay City Noon Optimus Rental with alcohol. we had received this letter about the Noon Optimist renting the hall for I believe it was a
Camel race.